All right, well, today we're going to be talking about drums and drums only. This is such a crucial part of music production that we really need to devote an entire project just to how to design drums, what are the different drum sounds that exist. Tons of information about this on the internet, so I encourage you to do some further reading on this if you're not too familiar with drums already. But in BandLab itself, we're going to create a new track and open up our drum machine. And I'm going to delete all this stuff right now because I don't want to use any of the preset stuff. If you just, you can see on the bottom here, it's set up a little drum pattern for you, which I'm going to delete all these. If you just click once and then drag all around here, it'll delete all these notes. All right, so we have acoustic drums, we have electric drums. Acoustic drums is what you normally think of when you think of a drum set, and that is typical kick drum, which is a big bass drum that you see kind of resting on the floor. You have different toms. You have usually two or three drums, what we call rack toms, that are kind of standing or sitting right above the kick drum, and usually there's a floor tom as well. And then you also have different kinds of cymbals. You have a hi-hat, which is that kind of a sound. You have a crash cymbal, and then you also have a ride cymbal oftentimes in a drum set, which we'll get to all those later on. And then one of the most important pieces of equipment on the drum set is the snare drum, and that gives the backbeat. When you hear the it's that. So anyway, I want to show you what we have as options here. When you click on drum machine, it actually brings up the 808 kit, which is an example of an electric drum kit. An electric drum kit basically does what an acoustic drum kit does, except that it's all kind of different kinds of sounds. They're not trying to necessarily replicate the sound of real drums. They're kind of bringing in their own flavor, and they're a lot more editable, and you can do makes tons of different sounds with them. There's some iconic electronic drum kits like the 808, which is the default here in this particular software, and it's a very commonly sampled drum set. But there's lots of different kinds of electric kits in different styles and all. But I want us to get to kind of a standard rock kit right now. So if you click on the different options we have here, you can see we have rock kit. So I'm going to choose that right now. All right, and now these are all the different kinds of drum sounds that we can use that all correspond to different letters on the keyboard as it's been mapped. So if I click on any one of these boxes here, there's 16 columns and 8 different rows for the different instruments. So the 16 columns here represent divisions of the measure. So most times in music, we have a song that has 4 big beats in every single measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. And if we divide that up into kind of 8, if we have 1, 2, 3, 4. This is dividing it up into 8. Da, 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 da. If we divide it into 16, we have. So basically 4 divisions of every single beat. All right. So these divisions are notated here in these boxes. All right. So we have beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, and beat 4 with 4 divisions each. All right. So the kick drum, when you click on here, it actually will play the sound of that drum. A kick drum is normally played on beats 1 and 3. Now there's lots of different options within that. We can add some more kick drum sounds, but kind of as a general rule, and this is of course broken all the time, but as you're starting out developing drum patterns, putting your kick on 1 and 3 is advisable. All right. And now we're going to add in our hi-hat. Our hi-hat is that okay, which is found here. And I'm going to put my hi-hat on every other 16th, note here, or basically once for every 8th note, if you know that musical terminology. All right. The snare drum. Oh, this is 4 times. Okay, here's our snare right here. And the snare is usually going to be offset of the kick drum. So normally we have kick, snare, kick, snare. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. If your kick's on 1 and 3, then your snare is usually going to be on 2 and 4, with our hi-hats kind of keeping that steady beat. This is about as basic of a rock, or pop drum groove that you might see. All right. So let's say we want to add one more kick drum. I'm going to add one more on the middle of beat 3. All right. If I change that to put it on beat 2, here's what it sounds like. Do, 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 do. So notice you can create kind of a different sounding groove depending on where you put a lot of these instruments. And let's say I want to change up where that last snare hits. Put it on the and of 4. Okay, we can also put a 16th notes in our hi-hat. Let's put our snare back on beat 4. All right, so let's say we're really happy with that groove. Notice that we have been editing A right now. This little pattern A has been all in green this whole time. So we've assigned this pattern to A. All right, so now we're gonna create pattern B here, and it's already got something set up here. So I'm gonna delete this because I don't want you to use the same exact pattern as what already existed. Okay, so now I'm gonna change this up. Notice I'm throwing in a couple All right, so now we've got a pattern for A and a pattern for B. So let's go back to our A pattern now, and I'm just gonna click on Add A. And notice when I do that, it shows up right here. All right, so I'm gonna extend this out for 4 full measures. All right, and now, if I bring in, actually, let's say, I just wanna do 2 measures. And let's say I wanna bring in pattern B. Oops, I just undo there. You gotta make sure and change where your playhead is located, because it's gonna put it wherever your playhead's at. This little white line that kind of shows us where we're at in the song. All right, so now I'm gonna click on Add B and extend this out for 2 measures. So now when I play it, oops. You gotta make sure that when you're playing it on the groove maker here, it's not the same as when you're playing it up here. So you got to use these play buttons independently of one another. All right, so let's say you've got your 4 measure groove right there with 2 different patterns. You don't necessarily need to do 2 different patterns, but I wanted you to show you how you can generate different patterns on A and B. All right, now let's say I want to use a different kind of a kit now. Let's say I want to do something that's a little more electronic. All right. So now, let's say I've created a pattern on C. There. And I'm gonna throw in some more toms now, just to show you what they sound like. And I'm gonna do open hi-hat. And I'll show you what that sounds like as opposed to closed hi-hat. If you can see in my video right now, a closed hi-hat, there's two cymbals that are kind of just touching right here, so they don't really vibrate too much against each other. But an open hi-hat kind of separates them, so they shake a little bit more. So that's why you get a little more of a sound. All right, so let's say I like that one. I'm going to bring in a new track here. And I'm going to add a oops, I'm still on the 808 kit. I didn't change my kit. Make sure you select the right kit, whichever one you like. Throw in your pattern, put it where you want it, extend the loop region. So now, so now I got a 4-measure drum loop here, different pattern there. All right. Now you can see that the patterns that we generated are actually notated right here. So we kept A the whole time here. But in case you wanted to do something a little different, we can make our drum patterns kind of a little more creative. So do an A-B-A-B kind of situation. So now you understand how, there you go, how to bring in different drum kits and create different patterns here. And not only that, but how to get them actually into your song. And you do that using this green button for, again, clicking on the pattern and then the add B button. You can just drag it and put it where you want it to go. Right? You can put it wherever you want on that timeline there. All right, making sure that you change your drum kit depending on what you want it to be. All right, so you're going to do this. You're going to create 4 different 4-measure drum patterns in this next assignment. And I want you to experiment with using different kind of drum sounds, different kind of patterns, all kind of within the drum machine that BandLab provides for you.